warm welcome to the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Nigeria marked Democracy Day on Saturday, June 12th, and feelings were mixed that day about democracy in the country. As you are aware, the suspension of Twitter, the microblogging social media platform, is still in operation. So Twitter is not in operation yet in the country, and the government has gone a different direction on that, choosing instead to open an account on Coup, which is similar to Twitter, but it's been produced by India. And more reactions keep trailing the suspension. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, released this statement on Thursday, reading, Nigeria's constitution provides for freedom of expression. The government's recent Twitter ban undermines Nigerians' ability to exercise this fundamental freedom and sends a poor message to its citizens, investors and businesses. Banning social media and curbing every citizen's ability to seek, receive and impart information undermines fundamental freedoms, as President Biden has stated. Our need for individual expression, open public conversation and accountability has never been greater. The path to a more secure Nigeria lies more, not less, communication, alongside concerted efforts towards unity, peace and prosperity. And from the U.S. State Department came this message. The United States condemns the ongoing suspension of Twitter by the Nigerian government and subsequent threats to arrest and prosecute Nigerians who use Twitter. The United States is likewise concerned that the National Broadcasting Commission ordered all television and radio broadcasters to cease using Twitter, unduly restricting the ability to report, gather and disseminate opinions and information has no place in a democracy. Freedom of expression and access to information, both online and offline, are foundational to prosperous and secure democratic societies. We support Nigeria as it works towards unity, peace and prosperity. As its partner, we call on the government to respect the citizens' right to freedom of expression by reversing this suspension. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation has denied threatening to prosecute Nigerians, still tweeting on the microblogging site. Now, remember, during the week, he issued a statement saying he had ordered the Director of Public Prosecutions to prosecute Nigerians using Twitter or any social media platform to express their view. He now denies the threat, saying it is within their guaranteed fundamental right to tweet from anywhere in the world. Nigeria, being a democratic nation, cannot stop its citizens from exercising their rights of freedom of expression. He denies asking the Director of Public Prosecutions to prosecute Nigerians using Twitter or any social media platform to express their view. You can always tell me what you think on Facebook and Instagram. But very quickly, to those Democracy Day protests they held not only in Nigeria, but in London and in New York. Orderly and without drama in London and New York, that is. But from both the UK and the US missions in Nigeria, were released statements regarding Nigeria's Democracy Day on June 12. The UK said on social media, on Nigeria's Democracy Day, we celebrate every Nigerian who contributed to establishing democracy in this country and emphasize the importance of upholding its values, including the right to free expression and to peaceful protests. The US mission in Nigeria also said on social media, the right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression and association are at the heart of a functioning democracy. We share what this means to Americans. We'll take a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles, and we'll be right back.
The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission held a webinar over the weekend to highlight inclusion and participation of Nigerians in diaspora in Nigeria's democratic process. One of the speakers at the webinar was former UK High Commissioner to Nigeria, Paul Arkwright, who commended President Muhammadu Buhari for being on the path of democratic progress with a lot of improvement in the years to come. He also listed areas for improvement, such as increased participation of women and youth in the democratic process, reduction in take-home pay of National Assembly and political office holders, reduction of political funds and adequate representation of all ethnic groups in the electoral and democratic process.
Many emerging democracies have issues, but I think Nigeria is clearly on the right path, and that is a very impressive achievement. I've seen that for myself. I have observed a number of regional and state elections in my time, and by and large those have worked well, and international observers such as myself have declared that those elections were broadly speaking, free and fair. So let's look at those positive and sides and celebrate those achievements.
NIDCOM chairman Abike Dabire-Rewa promised that the commission would continue to engage the diaspora, particularly women and youth, as the recently approved diaspora policy provides a holistic map for constructive diaspora engagement. She also echoed the need for diaspora voting, as the issue was exhaustively tabled at the recent public hearing on constitutional amendment.
Yes, at this point in time in our democracy, there are frustrations, there's some measure of anger, people expect more from government, and that is understandable. But the key thing is, as we have heard the president say, in the last 2 days, has been talking to us through various platforms. It is the responsibility of government, and everything will be done and must be done, particularly to tackle the issue of insecurity, the issue of creating jobs, the issue of tackling corruption, and other things that this administration promised. So for us in the diaspora, it's also history in the making, because for the first time you have a commission that is strictly for the diaspora. We say we have millions of diaspora doing so well, like you all on the screen. What can we do to harness these resources for the growth and development of our country?
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has debunked news that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Geoffrey Oyema, gave conditions for lifting the Twitter suspension when he met with the heads of foreign missions in Nigeria. A statement by the ministry says the minister, after meeting with some heads of missions resident in Nigeria, was quoted as saying that Twitter's operation in Nigeria will be restored only if the platform can be used responsibly. It said this was quoted out of context, and the minister was speaking generally about the responsibilities that go with freedom of speech, stating that platforms that have the power to instantly disseminate information among billions of people have the added responsibility to exercise that power responsibly. Israel's longest-serving leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, has lost his position following confirmation in parliament of a new coalition government. The country's new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, has been sworn in, leading a government of change. Bennett will be Prime Minister until September of 2023 as part of a power change. Bennett will be Prime Minister until September of 2023 as part of a power sharing deal.
ועוד כמיליון אזרחים נוספים שהצביעו למפלגות ימין בידיעה שהן תהיינה חלק.
Nigerians within the country have been very vocal about the situation in the country and how this impacts on democracy. What about Nigerians in the diaspora? Immigration lawyer Dayo Fadino joins us now to discuss. Mr. Fadino, thank you for joining us on the program today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Saturday, June 12, was another Democracy Day here in Nigeria. And as you may have heard and even witnessed, protests were planned across the country and in the diaspora against insecurity and bad governance. Looking from the outside in, and I know you're closely in touch with what's happening here in the country, what does the diaspora make of the situation in Nigeria? And were there any celebrations for Democracy Day?
First of all, I am of the strong opinion that Nigerians, not just in Nigeria, but Nigerians all over the world are quite disappointed, really, in the current state of affairs in Nigeria and the politics of Nigeria. The Democracy Day, yes, the Democracy Day, we've had this for a long time. We've been having this for so many years. But the current state of play at this point is to do with so many people being so disappointed. Democracy Day has been going on since, I think, for the last 20 years or more, and for every single year of this last 20 years, things have become worse in Nigeria. You have disorderliness, you have the state of anarchy, you have a situation where people are not safe, people are being kidnapped left, right, center. You have the situation to do with the marauding, Fulani herdsmen, kidnapping and killing. And it seems that this is not stopped. It's not stopped over the last 10, 20 years. And it's even got worse at this point in time as we speak. So when we say we are celebrating any Democracy Day in Nigeria, the whole thing comes across as a farce, really, and not really celebrating anything at all, because the politics of Nigeria and the democracy of Nigeria is not truly and really up to the standard it should be compared to more vibrant and more mature democracies all over the world. So indeed, yes, celebrating Democracy Day, it could be a good thing, but it does not touch and concern the lives, the livelihoods, you know, and the development of the overwhelming majority of Nigerians. So in my opinion, I don't believe the Democracy Day makes any sense or any difference at all. And for me, I did not bother to celebrate any Democracy Day at all. It was not what I believe in anymore. I think there should be a total root and branch reform of what's been going on in Nigeria for the last 20 years.
Security, as you've rightly pointed out, is a major concern for many Nigerians. Every week you have reports of banditry and they're also kidnappings. And on top of that, there's still the insurgency. And the president has promised in his speech on Saturday that all of these will be gone in a few weeks. How does that make you feel, knowing that this appears to be a recurring promise? And do you think that things will be different from now on?
I watched, I'm not sure of what interview you're referring to, but I know I watched
His Democracy Day address on Saturday.
Oh, I see. I didn't bother to watch that. But what I saw an interview with Arise some 2 or 3 days ago. But I heard about the Buhari interview, of which he was promising that in a few days' time, everything should be okay. President Buhari has been promising all sorts of things for the last 6 years. I remember when he was campaigning some 6 years ago, he was campaigning on the banner of change, on the fact that if he should be elected or if his government should be elected, he would do all he can to get rid of Boko Haram at that point and bring the country back to safety again. But honestly, over the last 6 years, I don't think that has happened at all. And in any country where, you see, protecting the lives of vulnerable people and their properties is paramount. When you cannot protect the lives of, when the government cannot truly and really protect the lives of people living within its geographical space, and this has gone on for so many years, where people are just being killed left, right, center. Their human rights not being respected. Bandits could just come out of the bush and pick you up and kidnap you. This has been going on for about 6 years. Any country that cannot guarantee, any state that cannot guarantee the safety, the protection of lives of its fellow citizens, in my opinion, is a failed state. I strongly believe that the promise he made yesterday that things would get better, it was just making this promise out of thin air. I'm sorry I'm using this type of strong language, but that's what I could sense. The situation over the last 6 years is to do with, so many separatist groups who now want to leave Nigeria. You got the IPOB, you got the Odua, you got the Middle Belt, people who are also clamoring for the independence. You got even parts of the North also saying the same thing. If indeed a government is really, really on what should be done about the security of a country and the well-being and welfare of the majority of citizens all over Nigeria, we should not be having bandits, murderers, herdsmen, picking up, students, in different colleges, picking up people, hijacking, and we're laying people on the roads, picking them up and taking them into the bush for ransom. Right. We should not be having this in a country called Nigeria today. In my opinion, this government has failed Nigerians. So whatever promise he made yesterday to do with the fact that he will do his best to get things rolling and to put the country in good stead, I cannot believe, and I don't want to believe, that what he was telling people yesterday would be the truth. on the long run.
You must have heard about the Twitter ban by now. The Twitter ban, Twitter suspension, they come in all forms. And of course, the criticism surrounding it, especially from the US and the UK and other countries in the West. Now, for the US and the UK, their Democracy Day message is centered around the freedom of speech as fundamental to democracy. How do you consider Nigeria's status in the international community in light of these criticisms?
The Twitter ban, I must say, came to me as a big shock. Just because of the fact that Twitter decided to, suspend President Buhari's account. The government then reacted so brazenly and so, as if we are still running, as if we are running some type of dictatorship in Nigeria by banning Twitter. In a democracy, the epicenter of any democracy anywhere in the world, including Nigeria, would be the human rights and the fundamental freedoms of its citizens. And the moment you start banning a very particular medium because of what you perceive them to be, because of the fact that you believe that you can't tolerate them, and for that reason you need to ban them. The moment you start doing that in a democracy, you are now vying and moving very, very closely into the remit of what's called dictatorship. It was totally wrong for him to have banned Twitter. I remember some years ago when President Trump was tweeting and saying so many things, horrible things about the world, about about Americans, about what he's going to be doing. Twitter actually suspended his account for a while. It did not go on air and then now start threatening, as horrible as people perceived Trump to be. It did not go on air and then on that account decide to ban Twitter. I mean, what our government is doing in Nigeria, nobody could actually understand the rationale and the sense behind that ban in the first instance. It was wrong, and I hope the government comes to, turns this very particular decision around and allows Twitter to continue to operate in Nigeria. Your right to free speech, your right to be able to express yourself, even if you do not agree with what that person is saying, that right should be sacrosanct. And so long as that right is not doing any harm, that right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech, so long as that right is not doing any harm to your person, you don't have any right to, ban or to, muzzle in on the powers of the press. It's totally, utterly wrong in any democracy whatsoever.
Can you very quickly, in less than a minute, just give suggestions regarding how to move democracy along quicker in Nigeria?
Well, the way things have panned out over the last 18, 20 years, I think we started experiencing this very particular democratic dispensation I think 21, 22 years ago. And we started with hope and with the betterment and the goodness of Nigeria itself, with all the resources we command, and the fact that things would improve after the Abacha era. But unfortunately, with all what we claim to be democratic at this point in time in Nigeria, things have not, I mean, the overwhelming majority of citizens are still suffering, still in abject poverty. Nigeria is now regarded as the poverty capital of the world. In a democracy, in the last 20 years, this has developed over the last 20 years. So my advice, quickly, would be that if we are to make democracy work at all in Nigeria, the citizens should be carried along. The grassroots should be carried along. The youngsters should be allowed to run for election and not just leave the power of politics and the decisions in political life to elders in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s. These are the same people who have been running the affairs of Nigeria for the last 40, 50 years, and things have not actually improved. I would advise, and I would opine very strongly, that the youngsters, they are capable youngsters in their 30s, in their 40s, who could be running the affairs of state, not the people we now have who have more or less run that country, aground. And
Mr.
I hope
Fadilo,
people listen to this very crucial advice.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and of course, you expressing your opinion, on the program about Nigeria's democracy and how far we have come. Thank you so much for speaking with us on Diplomatic Channel.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Amarachi. Thank you very much.
G7 leaders met over the weekend in the city of Cornwall in the UK, and apparently everyone left happy with the United stand against China and some other issues.
G7 leaders attending the summit in Cornwall agreed a number of things over the weekend, one of which is providing an extra 1 billion vaccine doses to poorer countries over the next year and committing to increase global manufacturing capacity around the world, improving early warning systems for pandemics and supporting science to cut the time it takes to develop vaccines.
A week ago, I asked my fellow leaders to help in preparing and providing the doses we need to vaccinate the whole world by the end of 2022. I'm very pleased to announce that this weekend, leaders have pledged over 1 billion doses, either directly or through funding to COVAX. That includes 100 million from the UK to the world's poorest countries, which is another big step towards vaccinating the world.
They also agreed to shifts from supporting countries' response to crisis to helping them grow and recover with jobs and investment, as well as a fairer global tax system. They committed to a green revolution that would limit the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius, promising to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050, halve emissions by 2030, and to conserve or protect at least 30% of lands and oceans by 2030.
We need to have some bigger commitments on climate finance, on phasing out coal, on low-carbon vehicles of all kinds, including EVs, and making commitments on protecting nature and biodiversity, which is integral to our struggle against climate change.
British broadcaster, writer and naturalist Sir David Attenborough told leaders that tackling climate change was now as much a political challenge as it was a scientific one.
Together,
according to the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, leaders agreed to coordinate their response to the challenges posed by China much more closely.
In our conversations, we recognize that there are issues in which we will have to engage with China. Climate change being a perfect example. We cannot keep the world to less than 1.5 degrees of warming unless China is part of the conversation and indeed the solution. But in many other areas, on the economy, on trade, we will find ourselves in a competitive position with China. We will compete with them. And still in a third area, there will be a need to contest China, particularly in the matters of human rights. And that's where all of us, as a G7 and partners, are aligned in ensuring that we are consistent and united in our approach on these issues.
The final communique of the meetings speaks about the country's shared values such as democracy and respect for human rights and the goal of getting 40 million more girls into education. The G7 meetings done, US President Joe Biden, who is on his first official trip since becoming president alongside his wife Jill, met with the Queen at Windsor Castle. The 95-year-old British monarch, wearing a pink floral outfit, greeted the Bidens in the quadrangle of the castle, home to the royal family for nearly 1,000 years, and where she spent much of her time since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. The US president heads off to a NATO summit on Monday, a US-EU summit on Tuesday, and a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva on Wednesday.
This is where we end the program this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget you can watch this edition and others on Channels Television's website. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.